Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Lewis with We Are Winter Garden, and we have a special guest with us today. This is Mayor Michael Blake of Cocoa, Florida, and of course, Pastor Scott, who is the founder, CEO, and president of Matthew's Hope Ministry. Today,
Are you impressed yet?
We're getting there.
Yeah,
yes,
there you
sir.
go. Yeah, okay,
We're getting there.
welcome to episode 27 of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, where we're going to be talking to the mayor about the impact that Matthew's Hope is making on this community. For those who may not be familiar, let me give you some background on the mayor. Michael Blake, he was elected to city council as a councilman in 1998. He served 2 terms as mayor between 2004 and 2012. In 2014, he was elected councilman for District 1, and in November of 2020, he was once again elected as mayor. Welcome.
Thank you, Tracy.
Michael, how long have you lived here in Brevard County?
All my life.
All your life.
Yes. I was born in beautiful downtown Rockledge, but it's not like the great city of Cocoa. Eugene Memorial Hospital. My parents, Richard and Rosalind Blake. I am the second of 3 children. I'm the child that makes sure my mom got to heaven. She heard the crowd. So the only time I adventured from Brevard County twice, once for collegiate college football scholarship, and also the second time a stint with the Miami Dolphins.
Wow.
So, but the remaining portion of my life, hot chocolate, baby.
All right. I love it. So you have roots here. You've seen it grow. You've seen many things happen. So for somebody who hasn't visited here yet, how would you describe Cocoa?
Cocoa is a melting pot. Even though we come from different tribes, we belong to one race, and that's the human race because we're all God's children. If you come to the downtown area, you get the old nostalgic look, the, mom and pop type stores, more related to the 50s and 60s. You go to the north by northwest area, that's our new developed area. We have better living conditions. And what I mean by that, let me say it, different lifestyle. That's our potential growth. We're constructing a new condo unit, Frameworks, by Nick Herring and his group. I think you all may be familiar with them. And also, we're growing along the corridor of 528 and 524. So a lot of great things are happening here in Cocoa, Florida, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And I'm glad that the citizens are embracing our growth and development so that we can have a safe and functional place to live. I want you to pray, stay, and educate yourself within the confinement of the city of Cocoa. We have elementary, high school, middle school, junior, senior high, and a 4-year degree at Eastern Florida State College and also UCF.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yes.
And we're also by the beach, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We're by the beach where you can tan your buns in the Florida sun.
You get out there and get a little more hot chocolatey.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Can you imagine me on a surfboard?
I can, actually.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture that myself. But tell me if I'm wrong here, but I also, if I'm not, there's some history with your family also in this community with your dad, who I know you still to this day spend time with him on a daily basis and care with him. But was he a principal?
Yes, sir.
I remember part of the story, but tell us what that was all about.
Dad started teaching, educated both of my parents. They met at Monroe High School. They met in 1957. I was born in 1960, so that was during segregated times. But they met at Monroe High School. It was the name of it at that time. And my father fell in love with my mom, and I have 2 other siblings. I'm the middle child. Because of he and segregation at that time, he could play with the kids, but he could not attend school with the kids. And what Scott is alluding to is that funny how life can be. It does a 360. The same school that he could not attend as a kid growing up, now he becomes the principal.
Wow, I love that.
Yes.
That's a great story.
Yes. that goes to show you through education and motivation will make a change in your life.
Absolutely, definitely together. Do you think that the city of Cocoa has a homelessness crisis
Not
or
on,
problem?
yes. Let me be first to say I'm happy to say the city of, yes, there's a homeless crisis problem challenge. But the thing that I am very happy of, we have a game plan.
Okay.
We have people like Matthew's Hope. That's been the missing link. We were having meetings where different 501c3 organizations and church affiliations and nonprofits would come together. But the city of Cocoa was aggressive and assertive through challenging conversations and collaborations with my good fellow friends.
Always challenging at first.
Oh, absolutely. But, justice prevailed. And what you do here on earth to me, and you're helping your fellow mankind, pays off when you go upstairs. You know what I'm saying? It's the rent you pay down here will get you upstairs, but it's more than just your works.
Right.
But the thing that I'm saying is we're being proactive. Okay. No other municipalities in Brevard County have a plan that we have. And we just recently got all the zoning squared away with Matthew's Hope so that they can cater and house individuals through proper vetting and screening. And I believe in Matthew's Hope. And that's why we fought to the very end. And the only time I would say no to Scott over here is not N-O, but K-N-O-W. I know we're going to get it done.
I love that. What a blessing this partnership is becoming. What factors do you feel contributed to homelessness in the area?
In this area, because of the services we provide, it's a focal point. We have people from different parts of the county come here, they congregate here because of the services we provide. As we will, I'm sure further in the conversation, talk about unfunded mandates, Senate Bill 1356, House Bill 1356. And my good colleague here will elaborate on that. But
you will.
Yes. The thing that was another conflict we faced, Tracy, is with Matthew Hope went through the zoning changes. People wanted everywhere else, but just not in my backyard.
Right.
And location. I mean, we're in a major fairway right here, through a fair, US 1 and the Indian River Drive. So you have some of your upper echelon homes located there, and they felt like the type of climate and element that would come here would infringe on their rights, their privacy.
Sure.
But this young man in Matthew's Hope and their staff, kudos to the staff too. Teamwork is dream work. They have security cameras that provide security as well. They can almost see, the stripes on on a fly's wing.
Yeah.
That's how detailed they are. And the thing is, once the community eventually and finally embrace that, a lot of the myths and legends that were being dispersed throughout the community was all false narratives. When I was a little kid, if you call an adult a liar, you got your mouth. So I'll just say false narratives. But we persevered. Matthew's Hope persevered, and the community has changed. Even one of my council members spoke about that last night. That he took a trip here. He didn't see the trash. He didn't see the things that they were all saying. And there again, there's three sides to the story: yours, mine, and then there's the truth.
Yep.
So I believe in Matthew's Hope.
So, Scott, I guess we are here acknowledging that there is a homeless crisis.
Well, I think that's probably the biggest part of the battle.
Yes.
Is dealing with the municipalities that we deal with, which I think is about 15 of them now. It's a rare opportunity that someone like Mayor Mike will sit down with you and acknowledge that there's a problem, there's a crisis. Now, that said, I want to make it really clear that there's a crisis nationwide right now. There's a homelessness crisis. There's a housing crisis that's taking throughout our country. Now, that said, it is concentrated throughout Central Florida. So Mike and his team are having to deal with something that's part of a bigger problem. And part of the challenges we have is municipalities aren't necessarily working together.
Right.
And acknowledging that, there's places nearby that will say, we don't have a homeless situation because quite honestly, we take them over to Cocoa. Okay. Now, what's interesting about those from Cocoa listening to this is those people that come from another place, let's say they came from Rockledge, within 72 hours, if they were brought here, they're back in Rockledge. Rockledge is home. And we have found that about 85% of the people we serve over the years have a direct contact to the community that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't see a lot of transients like people think of. We see them come through, but those people don't come through and stay.
Scott, talk about the scenario of when they do come to Cocoa and some of the challenges that they face about like one paycheck from moving out or losing their home. Could you give us the stats on that? Because I know that we all, because of the crisis here now, live from paycheck to paycheck. So if you miss a paycheck, could you tell us something about that too?
Well, and I think that's we know that Brevard as a whole is not an affluent community. Mm-hmm. There's people with affluence, but as a general statement, Brevard is one of the poorer counties in the state.
Okay.
Now you throw on top of that we have no state tax here, which we all enjoy. But the other side of that is enjoying not having the state tax is you all don't have the social services available. Right. So where in many places that if somebody were to miss that paycheck, there are places to go that will supplement to get them through. You don't see that here. And so what often happens is because of the way most of these rentals are set up, is there's a property manager involved. And the property manager takes the heart out of the whole thing. Okay, there is no owner you can talk to and say, hey, can we work this out? No, it's simply here's the process and you're out. I think we also haven't gone through the pandemic when we did not protect the property owners. That created a problem because you had people that invested what money they had into, say, a small apartment complex or rental properties that then people were allowed there to live for free with not having to prove that they needed help or not. And so they took advantage of that. Now that's backfired because now you got people that took advantage of that now have been evicted that cannot get a place.
That's right.
Okay. And that's due to their own doing. It's true. You can say that. But you also have property owners that went a couple of years in some cases without collecting any rents. And so they've gone into we used to have these things when I was a kid, we used to play with. They were like a little beetle. And when you touched them, they rolled into a ball.
Right.
Okay. Yes. So what's happened is they've rolled into a protective ball. And they said, I'm going to let the property manager deal with this. So I don't have to, because I care. I don't have to deal with this. And we're not going to give any leeway. And so what happens, it's a very fast process now that happens. And it's a slow process getting into a place, a really fast process of not being able of finding yourself in that situation. Mm-hmm. I mean, the truth of the matter is even I said in an earlier podcast, Matthew's Hope operates week to week. Now, I have the confidence in what we do that we have the support to continue. But I know that feeling when you have people that are expecting a paycheck. Mm-hmm. You can't help but concern yourself with that. I think those in public service of any kind, whether it's working in politics or it's working in the service sector we didn't get into this for the money. If we did, we're not that bright and you should get rid of us. But we got into it because we believed we could make a difference. And the challenge we're seeing is that there's such a disconnect often between the public and private sectors. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that Cocoa at this point is the closest we've had to that. We've done a lot of that with, say, in Winter Garden and stuff, but Cocoa has taken it a step further as far as the commissioners and that asking, commissioners, councilmen, I always want to screw that up.
Same thing.
Okay. They're taking an active, proactive role in asking the questions and trying to fully understand what's going on, and then made themselves very aware. I know that Matt, and I always script his last name, Matthew Behringer last night, made some comments, and it was clear that he's paying attention to what's going on around him.
That's good.
And it's not to say they weren't before, but they aren't just when people are complaining to the city about the homeless crisis, it's not falling on deaf ears. It's now the other side of it is you can't give what you don't have. I do this little thing sometimes with my homeless people, and I'll say, ask me for $100. And they'll say, Pastor Scott, can I have $100? And I reach in my pocket and I pull my pocket out, just the material inside my pocket. And I'd say, well, Mike, I'd love to give you $100, but I can't give you what I don't have. Okay. So you have people saying, well, the city's got to do this, the city's got to do this, the city's got to do this, the county's got to do this, the state's got to do that. That's all well and fine. How are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for that? And I think that now you throw a crisis in where people are living paycheck to paycheck, and you have a system that is, for the most part, broke. Okay, just trying to figure out how to keep the lights on. How do you bring those two together? And I think that I kind of veered off a little bit of your question, but I think that that's one thing we're dealing with right now is trying to figure out how to do a lot with a little, and then trying to be good stewards of what we do have, and figuring out. It's nice if a city wants to be a sponsor of something, but I think the question has to be is it more than just a nice thing? Is it going to impact? Same thing with here. People say, can Matthew's Hope sponsor this? Well, I can do a lot of things that are nice to do, but I have to look at everything and say, okay, what's the biggest bang for my buck, and where can I actually impact something?
Absolutely.
The handshake, the smile, the camera shot is great. But when we walked away, was that the best way for us to spend our $1,000 or whatever the case is?
Right.
Another dilemma we're facing is as the individuals were hidden in the wilderness, but through growth and development, as Scott has alluded to earlier, they're being forced out of their homes of privacy from the wilderness and now being exposed, so they have to go somewhere.
Right.
And that's a concern that we have too as well. Just recently, maybe about a couple of weeks ago, we did Point of Count, where we went into homeless camps and did a physical count, check mark, et cetera, And a lot of the camps that I attended started off like 5:30 in the morning. As guess what? When you open up your eyes 5:30 in the morning, guess who's coming to your home? Guess who's coming to dinner? Michael, 6'5", svelte, 295 pounds. And here I am greeting you, asking you a series of questions.
Were you surprised by how many were in the camp?
Absolutely.
Were you familiar with?
Yes. And family members. Children too as well.
So it's not just people who are addicted to drugs, or it's families. It's somebody who just lost their job in their home.
Yes. Have no place to reside. And here we are, through development, we're changing their environment. The other greatest concern I have is also making sure that if they are exposed or removed out of the wilderness, where do they go?
Right.
How do we provide adequate services for these individuals? Because, they are too human.
Right.
And we are God's keeper children. We got to take care of them.
We definitely do.
And the beautiful thing I like is when they can receive services, homeless veterans and that. Now, Scott can talk about some of those conditions too as well. But when you have family members that do enter into Matthew's Hope, and I want to brag on them because what the impact that they're having. And when kids say, I feel safe for once in my lifetime, and you see the videos, or you see a veteran who is homeless that hasn't taken a bath in years playing taps, that touches your heart too as well. He served and fought for our country, and now he needs help. And when they get the information and contact, once they start here at Matthew's Hope, and the other 501c3s, they do their job too as well. But the greatest impact through volume of people, direct impact, is right here at Matthew's Hope. And that's why we believe, I know I do at Matthew's Hope. I've toured both facilities in Winter Garden and right here. And then again, I feel like Judy Garland. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. And they don't stay here. They progress and move on with their life. This is just a temporary thing.
Okay.
And that's the wonderful thing about it. And you build up your self-esteem and confidence. And when a child or children or family have a permanent or semi-permanent residency, then their grades and self-esteem increase, their attendance improve, their eating habits change, their health environment change, and you get all that right here.
That's amazing. Yeah. What was your first reaction when you were introduced to Matthew's Hope? Were you familiar before you met Scott, or how did you get introduced, and what was your first reaction?
Scott came to one of our council meetings.
Okay.
And as we were embracing the homeless issue, and come to Winter Garden, take a tour of his first facility there. And when I went there early in the morning now, which I'm glad I did, I saw love. That's the first thing I thought about is love. People caring.
Yeah.
Caring is sharing. Not sympathy, but empathy. That's the difference.
So important for that too, I feel.
Yes. And you give people hope.
Yeah.
And you hear the countless cases and testimonies of where I started and where I'm at now.
Is that?
There's good and mercy in us all,
Right.
It's a short step from the penthouse to the outhouse.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to have that understanding.
Of course.
I think, I think that, the mayor's effort, look, we all got stuff to do. We're busy people. We don't have time, but making the effort to actually speak with some of these folks also. I think what's important to know and I think it's one of the challenges we have with the general public is these people, well, I used to say nobody was born homeless. I can't say that anymore. That happens now every day. But when I started, the truth was nobody was born homeless. But, we have to ask ourselves as human beings, first off, look at ourselves, but have to ask ourselves, what took place in this person's life that made it acceptable to live this way?
And
then ask ourselves, what role as society are we playing? I know in the last meeting I was in at the city council was, the comment was made by someone about the drug addiction aspect of it. And I'll fight this argument till the day I die is drug addicts do not become homeless. Homeless people become drug addicts because they start self-medicating with drugs or alcohol, because quite honestly, we make it so hard. I will not ask the mayor to comment on this at all. But I said to Charlene the other day, we're driving into the village down 520, and there is this artwork that's out there. And in the artwork, it's people sitting on benches. Okay. And it's a very welcoming feeling. And then I had to laugh, and I looked at Charlene and I said, it's interesting that we have a place that is projecting this, hey, come sit on our benches, but we're getting rid of our benches because we're afraid you're going to sleep on it at night. And if that hasn't fallen on anybody's, the merchants or anybody else, if you haven't thought of that, you might want to. And again, I would never dare ask Mike to comment on that. But it's little things that I've seen that, again, I understand. I do. I understand why people feel the way they do, but it's born out of ignorance, like most things. Racism is born out of ignorance. We can go on and on, but now it's just stupidity when the information is there and you are invited in, which we have gone out of our way to invite the public in. If you've come in and you see for yourself and then go out there and tell someone, well, let me tell you how awful that place was, then at least you've earned the right to speak.
Is that?
Where I look at it as that when you are just stirring the pot, but you haven't set foot on this place or ever talked to a homeless person, all your exposures on social media. The other day, we had a guy, it was on the news, I think it was on Fox 35, that crossed over 520 and jumped in the Indian River. Okay. And he took some shots at he had a firearm, took shots at the police and to the sheriff's department. He jumped in the river. Anyhow, they caught him. And by the time he was on Facebook, it was this homeless guy, which he may have been, I don't know. But he was trying to swim to his camp.
Oh.
Okay. And all I put on there is, I'm not going to get into the argument. I don't argue with stupid. I just don't have the time for it. And I can say things like that he can't. Okay. And he shouldn't. Okay. I don't argue with stupid. But what I did say in my comment was, no, what you had was a criminal with a firearm that happened to be homeless. And see, we've got to quit labeling things. If a black person robs a bank, What's the difference between a black person robbing a bank and a white person or a Hispanic person robbing a bank?
Right.
Nothing. It was a criminal that happened to be black, white, or Hispanic. But the truth is that when you start to look in the eyes of somebody, you know, then they become a human being, and it changes your perception on everything. Most of what we see is created in sound bites on the news, and we go, well, there you go. And we've created a world now that, depending on what your political persuasion is, you can find a channel that will feed into that. And so what you do is you start to believe that everybody believes just like you do.
Right.
Okay. Well, I tell people, if you're just watching Fox or watching CNN, you're doing a disservice to yourself. Watch them both and everything in between. There's right, wrong, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. But as an intelligent human being, you should be able to watch that and then decipher that. You know, I used to tell my girls all the time when they're growing up, I go say, girls, I'm not going to tell you what to believe, politically, religiously, or anything else in between. What I'm going to ask you to do is know why you believe it and then be able to articulate it. And I said, even if I disagree with you, I will respect you. You know, unfortunately, we've gotten way far away from that.
Yeah. So Mayor, I have a question for you. We're talking about sleeping on benches and whatnot, and you were visiting the camps, and there's been a recent law of outlawing camping in public spaces. Can we talk little bit about that?
Yes, House Bill 1365. That's there now. That's filtrating through our state legislatures. And then there's a Senate side too as well. Both sides, the Senate and the House, is getting ready to hit the floor so that they can take a big vote on it. My concern is this. Quite naturally, I know that people need a place to stay and live. How do we address that issue? Through unfunded mandates. Being a school teacher, I've had homeless kids in my classroom, and it's tough because I don't want the other kids to know what they're experiencing because that child must pass the state standards so that they can graduate and move on to the next level, which is a challenge to me because they're not having the basic essentials, food, shelter, and protection.
Right.
And I must motivate that child when they're hungry or they lack basic utensils, toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant. So that is a tough challenge that we all must face. How do we address that? Some feel that we should have a location and let them reside there. Some feel that they should have those small homes. But to me, the best way that we can do is do like we're doing now. Sit down and let's have this conversation. We know it's going to require funding. State legislatures give us adequate funding. Find out the parties that need to be involved. Municipalities, county level, et cetera, et cetera. Who's going to get the funds? Which organizations? Brevard Homeless Coalition, and how it's equitably disseminated throughout, the government or local municipalities and 501c3s. Do I have that one answer? No. Do a place for individuals to live and be safe at? Yes, I'm in support of that. I was looking at a video in Los Angeles, California. They have the little small homes, little trailer homes, where the homeless can go there if they meet the vetting process. I think Palm Bay is considering something parallel to that. But we always have to go back to the dollars and cents. How do we accommodate them to the dollars and cents? Because right now, our state legislators are cutting off all revenues for us to generate funds to address that concern. Our local business tax receipt, they're trying to eliminate that altogether. The city of Cocoa earns roughly about $120,000 plus. We can allocate that funds for something else too as well. When businesses come into the community and develop wilderness or homes from the wilderness, then we can use some of that money to address these concerns or address what we have already a proven track record here at Matthews Hope. Yes, ma'am. And here's the beautiful thing about it, though. Even though you're falling on hard times doesn't mean that's the end of your time. You know what I'm saying? We all go through changes because here you get cosmetology. Here You can get a certificate of forklifting or get an adequate job. And he can expound on a little bit more than that. I mean, a barbershop. I mean, it's so many great things that's being offered here. Knowledge is power. And so we must expose, because Scott comes in and gives us a monthly report. He'll tell us how many heads, they groomed and cut. And I let him speak about it a little bit more. But my thing is, yes, ma'am, the solution is in the room with us human beings that really care. If I'm going to be my brothers and sisters' keeper, but by God, we should be able to voice our concerns and opinions and listen.
Right. And I feel like it's going to take the help of politicians too to recognize it and start working together. Do you see that shift happening, or is it going to take a while for that to go into effect?
Let me answer it this way, Tracy. Until it hits in your own backyard, they'll kick that can down the road. There again, we have a plan in Cocoa, and you're looking at part of the plan. And my thing is just making sure, as individuals who do want help, where they can go and receive resources that provide an adequate way of life and living for they themselves or not their families.
Right.
So, I mean, when people know you care, empathetic.
And I think we need something I want to make sure we address with this, that if people stayed on here with us and listen to the conversation is, if they know anything about us, we're not about enabling people. We're about moving people towards a life of independence and self-sustainability. So we have to understand the different levels of homelessness and how people got there. But we also, if we look at a tiny home situation, I love the tiny home idea, like I love food stamps. And here's what I mean by that. If it's a bridge, it's meant to be. But there's got to be a bridge to create that opportunity for you to become independent, self-sufficient. Right. What's happened, like food stamps, there's been people on them for years and years and years. That's not what was intended for. Right. We let people buy crappy food with it. If you're in our program, we actually go through that stuff and say, no, you're not going to live off junk food. Here's how this is going to work. I'm not going to help you with that, and help you with the dentist also. It's the same thing, whether it's tiny homes, whatever the case is, all these things are viable possibilities. But you've got to go in with the approach that it's for a bridge from point A to point B to get you from here to there. This is not your permanent home. Like our transitional housing, 2 years, you're maxing out. Okay, if we can, the reason 2 years is we have found that in many cases, by the time we've dealt with medical issues, legal issues, financial issues, whatever the case is, and each person brings their own bucket of junk, we work through that with them on an individual basis. And I think another problem we have in homeless altogether is we have pitted the nonprofits against each other for funding. And so people are saying, well, why don't they all work together? Well, because they've been pitted against each other. And so we've tried to take ourselves out of that mix for the most part, trying to find creative funding, whether it's the rental of our facilities, the fundraisers we do, the support we have in the community. But everything's done with the idea that I love you, I'm not going to keep you. Okay. The happiest day in my life with these folks, as I said, was when you waved to me in the rearview mirror. Yeah. And you're heading onto your own place. And I think that no matter whether it's Palm Bay, Rockledge, Titusville, Melbourne, whoever, they're all going to have to deal with this. They can stick their head in the sand a little longer if they want to, but what they've seen so far is not anything compared to what's about to happen. And so if we, like most things, if we can get proactive, pay me now or pay me later, get proactive to it as opposed to waiting. LA, you mentioned LA earlier. LA has finally decided they have a homeless problem. But when Skid Row went from a couple blocks to several miles, that's right. Now the problem is, instead of millions, now it could be billions to take care of the problem. The good news is they're starting to act. The bad news is there are some people around the world that are going to sit there and go, well, I'm going to feed you today, tomorrow, and every day. And it's like, no, even from a biblical standpoint, if a Christian fully understands Scripture, it doesn't say that. It says care for those who cannot care for themselves. It also says you work, you eat. And so we need to find that ground, that line in the sand, to where we're walking with you, but we're not doing it for you. And we always say, help us, help you, help yourself. Help us, help them, help themselves. And that's what that's all about. It's like, okay, how you got there, quite honestly, doesn't make a difference to me. Because I have people sometimes say, well, they brought it on themselves. Well, they may have. And if you want to suggest for me a minute that one of us hadn't made a stupid decision in life, Some of us just paid a bigger price for that same decision. Okay, I tell some of these guys out here, there's nothing you've done I haven't done. The difference is you got caught.
Right.
Okay. And why? I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. But because of that, we have some insight that we can help you move to that next place. You got to get them to believe they can move to the next place first, though. And I think that's where the partnerships of things like Matthew's Hope with the city of Cocoa, and I got to tell you, 4 out of 5 leaders have been strongly behind us. There's a gal, Lorraine Koss, that traveled with me.
Question is how others are, or what you're hearing from other constituents that you need to work with. Are they talking about it, or like you said, it just hasn't fallen in their backyard yet, so they haven't touched on it?
Some will contribute. It's hit or miss, because to me, let me share something with you real quick, Tracy. One of my pet peeves are the people that panhandle in the middle of the highway. Now that sets my happy fat butt on fire. They're not homeless, they're just panhandling. Sitting in a
Professional panhandlers.
Yes. And to me, it's wrong when the people stop and give them that money.
Right. Because they're encouraging that behavior and they're going to come back tomorrow.
And impede traffic. So if someone...
It's dangerous for everybody.
Thank you. And my church is right there on the corner. And there's a smoke shop that's there too on 520 US 1. So the money that you're giving these panhandlers, sirs and ma'ams, they're going right over there to the smokehouse. I would rather you donate your money to an organization, a 501c, 3, and help the people there directly so that they can come here and get proper services rendered to them.
I tell people all the time, you cannot let your heart get ahead of your head.
Right.
God gave us a brain.
And you've taught me so much with that, because I was the helper doing it not the right way, where it's just in the moment and it's not helping them move forward.
And I think that, again, if we could get the community rowing together in the same way, it's not, what happens is, again, that battle starts happening where it's like, well, this, and this. It's like, well, wait a minute. If we agree on a set of ways of doing things, which I know is difficult, especially this economic climate, the political climate we're in, but the truth is that you've got to figure out how to come together and say, okay, this is how we're going to try to address this. If we're all pulling in a different direction, or if you ever sat in a boat, one person's rowing way, all you do is go in circles. And in that time you're in the circles, you can spend a lot of resources. In the boat case, you're spending the resource of your energy. In this, you're spending financial dollars that may as well have been, when I was a cokehead, we literally sometimes, we'd be so high, we burn $100 bills. Okay. Wow. But you know what? There's more where that came from.
Sure.
Living the life I live now, when I look at that, I go, how insane that is. But it's no more insane than doing some of the things we're doing, not only in the nonprofit world, but in the political climate that we're doing. And you're sitting there kind of going, yeah, but are we seeing any fruit, any success? And if there's not some success that you can see, and I'm not talking about statistics. I can make statistics. I was well enough educated. I can swear those things 4 ways to Sunday. Show me real people, show me real situations, and show me real success. And I think that's what we need to do, and somehow rehumanize people to the general public. Because, and not get caught up on, when I get into politicians, don't get caught up on you're going to get elected on. You do the right thing.
Because it's
as a Christian, and I'm not saying everybody is, as a Christian, God's going to handle that just fine. And you may not always win. You may not always get your way. But God will handle that in the long run. And so when I see people that agree that we should do this and then turn around and jump on board the other way and say, well, I'm against it. Well, but why? Or just articulate to me why and help me understand, because I could be wrong. And so I think, again, with the general public, from our leadership on down, it's, again, the same thing I told my children. I don't care what you believe. Just know why you believe it, and then be able to articulate to the rest of us that we can sit there and go, okay, I don't know that I agree with you, but I respect you because you thought about that. Not for a minute will anybody think. I think if Mike and I were to sit down over a couple tequilas, which I don't even know if he drinks, but I do.
Cocoa water.
Cocoa water, same thing. We would sit there and say, we could find all kinds of things. We go, I don't know if I believe with the same thing you believe in there, but here's what we do believe. We believe that if we create the conversation, that's how things get done. And that's why I treasure my relationship with him is because the fact the man is actually thinking this stuff out. And you may not like everything he says, but he's not saying it just to hear himself speak.
Absolutely.
Tracy, can I add a little light to that too?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure, we as legislators ourselves, we make ordinances and laws to support, representative democracy, but we cannot arrest the homeless people to solve this problem because they'll stay up there for a few days and they'll be released. And guess where they're coming? Back to an area that they're familiar with. And I'm sure Scott has heard stories like that. So it's going to take a combination of collaboration, communication, and a lot of cooperation.
Yes.
Both from municipalities and private entities and 501c3 entities. So it's going to take a lot of that and everybody to have a safe and secure and sound foundation, a reasonable answer. And then we're going to have to tweak it and, as we make the adjustments. That's what the amendments are, to change.
But what I think I'm most aggravated with and most disheartened about is all we hear is not here. And not here is not an answer. That's just not an answer. Because if we're going to put law enforcement in a place where they're going to have to ask people to move, and the guy says, okay, I'll go over there. Well, you can't be there either. Well, where exactly am I supposed to go? And again, I'm not for a second, I'm looking on the camera on this, I'm not for a second telling you that all these people we deal with are fine, upstanding people. But I will tell you that the majority of them have just been broadsided by life. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's deal with the criminals as criminals.
Sure.
Let's quit dealing with them because they're homeless. They must assume to be a criminal of some kind. Mm-hmm. And, our next issue of Moving Forward magazine, Michael, is actually focused on the criminalization of homelessness. And that's something I thought I would never really address as openly as we're having to right now, because both the local level and the county level and state level, we're seeing all these different laws being put in place. But again, nobody's looking at what's the ripple effect, okay? To say I'm moving a homeless person, well, what does that mean? Well, years ago, several states did this thing where they were putting people on buses. Okay, I think it actually even happened down in Daytona. They'd buy you a bus ticket any place you want to go as long as it wasn't here. Here's the funniest part about that is they just paid for someone's vacation, and a short time later, that person was back because that was home. Now, that said, we do have people that find themselves down here and get stuck. They came down here for a dream they thought was here. The happiest place on earth, we call, right, Central Florida, and they find out it's not true. Now they're stuck. I can't tell you, we have probably, since we've opened up this campus in Brevard, we have sent no less than 20 people back home. Once we reconnected them with a family member that said they can come back and get on their feet, we put them on a bus, we put them on a plane, we put them on a train, and we send them home because they got a better chance. But we don't, because you show up here and say, I want to go to New York. So what? So do I.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a Springsteen concert going on. Okay? let's go, but I'm not buying your damn ticket. Okay. So it's got to be, again, comes back down to that end game. What's the end game? The end game is to get that person in a safe place. Okay. Especially if they had children, so those children could thrive. Because if we don't, and as an educator, Mike, you know this better than anybody, if we don't do something, we are raising our next generation of homelessness and poverty. And then what's going to happen is kind of like I used to get very angry sometimes. Someone who came out of poverty and has been homeless, I got very angry at people for a while until I started to realize they're only doing what they know.
Right.
And so we are participating as a public in teaching these children it's okay to live this way. Mm-hmm. In fact, this is how everybody lives, and that's not the case.
It's not acceptable.
Right.
Because there's good and mercy in us all, and I think everyone has a skill and a talent. It's just finding the right venue to showcase your skills and talents.
Right.
And that's why I'm a firm believer and that everyone has a good opportunity. we must educate ourselves. And instead of depending on the system, educate yourself through the system so that you know how to navigate through life.
Right.
You have a setback, you make a comeback. You know?
Mayor, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you coming here because I feel like it steps forward and you're setting the path for other politicians and just the community in general to open their eyes and their ears and come and visit and learn more about it. And that's what this podcast is about. It's educating so we can take steps forward and make these partnerships together with organizations, with the city. You have anything that you'd like to add or end before we?
Yes, I would like for all elected officials, citizens of the community to foster a relationship with those that may face hard times temporarily. Just have an understanding heart.
Right.
And that goes a long way.
I love it. Well, thank you.
And I'll say this to Tracy before you go ahead and close this is an open invitation to every mayor, councilman, commissioner, state representative, anybody who wants to sit at this table. We don't have to agree with each other. Just know what you believe and why you believe it and be able to articulate it. We will give you the platform to do that. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something I don't know, but I'm willing to learn.
Yep, we all are, and that's why we're here. Thank you so much for being here, Mayor. Thank you, Pastor Scott. Thank you guys for being here. Please remember to like, comment, and follow Matthew's Hope and see how you too can get involved and learn more. See you next episode.